Welcome on in, everyone, to episode 6 of the Pace Pals podcast. I have my guest here, Moose.
Hello, everyone.
So, what kind of game do you speedrun?
I speedrun Ninja Gaiden for the NES specifically. So, really old game from the 80s, way before I was born.
And now, how did you, so I've never heard of this game, other than, seeing you speedrun it. How did you get introduced to this game?
Yeah, great question. When I was in high school, I was a huge nerd, I guess, and I was kind of interested in buying old consoles and just like playing old games. And I kind of was like interested in collecting as many consoles as I could. And I never really got around to doing that, but I did start by buying an NES. Obviously, the first Nintendo console. I thought that would be a good start. So I also had a second cousin who worked at a retro store, so I had pretty relatively easy access. So I bought an NES like around 2014, I guess, and I bought quite a few games, including Ninja Gaiden, which if you didn't know is probably like top five hardest NES games. I would say arguably like the third hardest, like after Mike Tyson's Punch Out and Battletoads. But casually, it's very hard. So like during when I was in high school, I would occasionally try to beat it, but I never got close. And then just kind of like forgot about it, I guess. And then in 2020, during the start of the pandemic, the Summoning Salt Ninja Gaiden video came out, and so I became aware of. I already knew what speedrunning was, but then I watched the Summoning Salt video, which was cool. But that didn't get me into speedrunning right away. It wasn't until um, December of 2020 I had started streaming, but I was doing like Minesweeper speedruns because that's the first thing I did speedruns of. And I decided I would finally go back and try to beat Ninja Gaiden. And so in December of 2020, I started trying to beat it on emulator on stream. And then I realized, you know what, like maybe I should actually speedrun this. And then sure enough, when I was streaming it casually, I had a speedrunner come into my stream named Edo, who's a really good runner. And he kind of helped me beat the game and then said, hey, you should speedrun this. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually very interested in doing that. And I actually didn't beat it casually. I got close, but I gave up because I was like, you know what? I don't want to try to beat this casually. I just want to go ahead and speedrun it. And so, yeah, I'd already been watching speedruns like all of 2020. That's when I first got into Twitch. And then I started streaming myself. And I was like, okay, I want to beat Ninja Gaiden. And I was like, you know what? I guess I'm just going to try this speedrunning thing. I kind of wish I had started in high school. That would have been really cool because I didn't know what speedrunning was back then. But bit of a missed opportunity, I guess. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
Yeah, that's how I pretty much got into speedrunning as well. As through Twitch and just looking up different games, different Zelda games and all that, and that's how I ran into Pope Squidward at the time, and I think he was playing Ocarina Time or speedrunning it, and then slowly went into MM. But that's how I got my start into speedrunning.
Yeah, that's how it happens for so many people. I watched speedruns on YouTube when I was like younger, but it wasn't until 2020 when like I needed more stuff to watch that Twitch became like the thing that I watched like all the time. And so that just kind of got me around speed. I wasn't watching Ninja Gaiden speedruns at all. I was watching Mario 64 and Odyssey in 2020, and then I kind of just stumbled upon Ninja Gaiden myself because I always liked it a lot. I forgot to mention this, but when I played it in high school, I loved it. It was my favorite NES game by far, and it's just a very satisfying game to play and satisfying run to do. Um, yeah, so it kind of fits me more because I was watching Mario 64, but I never was really interested in trying it myself. But Ninja Gaiden, I had already had a love for, so it just kind of made sense. And then once I started running it, I just kind of fell in love with it. Like I think people who get into speedrun, they can never really predict how far they'll go with it. Some people just kind of jump from game to game and just kind of casually do runs and But for me, it just became something that I really wanted to focus on and get better at, and so that's why I've been doing it for so long, and why I haven't done any other games as far as speedrunning goes yet. So
Yeah, and you can see that with a lot of streamers that like Pope Squidward for example, or like Richard Sage. They stick to like one game. They'll do like every other stuff every now and then, but a lot of them just stick to one game, one speed run, or like one game, but like go through different categories of that one game. Um, then bouncing from game to game to game. And I mean, if you want to learn a lot of speedruns of a lot of different games, like go for it. Bounce between different games. You get a good time in one game, start learning another one, go for it. I mean, like no one's stopping you. And if you have fun doing it, then go for it. Like I said, like
yeah, for sure. I would say for me, I'm very competitive, and I really want to be good at things. And so that combined with the fact that I actually just really I enjoy running Ninja Gaiden, is why I've chosen to focus on one. And I've out of all the top runners, I have taken way more breaks than most other people. Like I don't grind year round, because I eventually just want to like do some other hobbies. Because when I play Ninja Gaiden, I grind. It's like my life for a
yeah,
while. So I tend to take a lot of breaks. But even during those breaks, like I've never been interested in trying another game, um, because I don't know. I take a break from speedrunning altogether, pretty much. And but I've always every time I take a break, I know there's unfinished business, and eventually I'll come back to it. So um, I actually recently I finally found another speedrun I'm interested in doing in the future, and that's Contra for the NES. But um, I'm not in any hurry to start that. I have a lot left to do in Ninja Gaiden, not just in any percent, but in other categories as well. So looking
now
forward to that. I hope to play a lot more. I hope to play the rest of the year. Like I hope to be running the rest of the year.
yeah.
Be
Now,
a
have you
long
gotten
grind for me.
any? Do you hold any world record titles, or
Yes, I do. I have the world record in damageless for Ninja Gaiden. So in Ninja Gaiden, there's five main categories. There's 80%, low percent, which is where you only use your sword and you aren't allowed to use any sub weapons, which are other weapons that are used a lot in 80%. And pacifist is a category where you can't kill anything except for the bosses. And then 100% is kind of a silly category, but it is a main category where you have to collect every single item container in the game. That's a relatively long category. And then finally, damageless is it's the hardest category in the game by far to finish a run in. There's only 4 completed runs of it for a reason. The rest of the categories have quite a bit more. But yeah, damageless is like yeah, obviously I have a world record and I'm very proud of it. But it's kind of a long story how that category came about. Because in Ninja Gaiden there is 2 final bosses, and the second final boss is called the Demon, and it has a giant head. Okay, and then you have to knock down the head before you can actually start killing the demon and doing damage to its health bar. When you knock down the head, it falls and it moves left across the screen and it hits you. Okay, and that does damage. And for the longest time, it was pretty much thought to be impossible to avoid that damage. But it wasn't until like 2021, I think, early 2021, that someone named Slackinator, he was trying to beat a bunch of NES games damageless, and he basically figured out, okay, well, we can actually kill the head before it hits us, but it requires you to have a really fast mashing speed because in Ninja Gaiden, there's this technique called slash canceling, where if you press down and B together, you can slash multiple times in the air. Whereas normally, if you just slash with B, you can only do it once or twice in the air, which for the bosses is extremely slow. But
interesting?
what that means is the faster you can hit down and B, the faster you can do damage. So when it comes to Gaiden, there's this interesting barrier for some runners. If you can't smash down and B at a really fast speed, you actually cannot get world record. Like it's just not possible. So there's a physical limitation to it, which is really interesting. And
Wow.
anyways, in damageless, And in order to kill a demon head, you have to be able to mash pretty quickly, and that's why only 4 people have finished a run. Not only because it's hard, but because there's that physical limitation of needing that mash. And it's an awkward kind of mash. You're not just pressing one button, which is kind of more common. You're trying to press 2 at the same time, so it's a pretty unique technique, which is part of the reason why I fell in love with the game. And it turned out I'm actually pretty good at mashing in Ninja Gaiden. So I had my eyes on the damages world record for a long time, but it wasn't until I got my 11.3x in any percent, which was top 3 at the time that I got it in any percent, that I felt like I was really ready to focus on damageless. And what I wanted to do in damageless is to like basically go as hard as I can, because the runs that were on the board already, some of them had pretty safe strats, because obviously, if you play safe, you're less likely to take damage. And the idea is that you want to get to the demon as much as possible, because killing the demon head is not free. Even if you are good at mashing, it's an awkward kind of kill to do, and you're also extremely nervous because it's the very last thing in the run. So a lot of people were just doing like easier strats just to get to the demon, just to have a chance to finish a run. But I was confident in my abilities, and I knew since I'm such a good any percent runner, I could just go for as many any percent strats as possible just to save time, and then just get myself to the demon for a decent chance. And so it took me less than 1,000 attempts, which I was pretty happy about. But I eventually did beat the world record by uh, 30 seconds, is something like that. It's a pretty big world record. I
Wow.
expect it to be I expect it to be around for a long time, because Ninja Gaiden isn't an extremely popular game to begin with. I mean, we do have a pretty healthy community, but it's not extremely popular, and most people don't have the mash to even do it in the first place. So luckily, there's a category made just for me, pretty much with that mashing ability needing to be strong. So I was very happy to get that goal, because honestly, I had that world record goal since like late 2021. I've been wanting that world record. I just never got around to doing it, because any percent was kind of taking up all my time. So I was just focusing on that. So yeah,
Gotcha.
long story, but yeah, that's my world record. I'm very happy about it for sure.
That's crazy. Like I've seen a lot of games where you get the mash and like, but knowing that to get world record you have to mash 2 buttons that fast, that is crazy to think about.
Yeah, for sure. It's very unique to Gaiden, and part of the reason why I've wanted to just get so good at Gaiden in general is because I knew I had that ability to mash. Like not everyone has that gift, that physical gift, and so like the fact that I have it just made me want to like take the game as far as I can, because some people like have a mash and they don't end up running the game for very long, and there's some people who have gotten really good at guiding without having a great mash, and I can imagine like seeing other people have a great match but not actually want to play the game much, and you're like, oh, like why can't I just have your ability? And so like I just feel pretty like I'm just very like just lucky, honestly. Like there's nothing, there's no other way to say it. Like just lucky that I have that ability, and so I might as well make the most of it and try to really get as good as I possibly can. But you're right, it's such a unique. I have not seen it anywhere else where it's like you genuinely need to have this ability in order to get world record, and if you
Yeah,
don't, that's just it. Like I've never heard of that anywhere else. It's just a genuine physical limitation. It's really kind of strange, but yeah, it
yeah, I'm
is.
like trying to think of like what games I've played or seen that like need like a mashing skill of that, and to be honest I can't think of any.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, like there's plenty of games where mashing can help you gain an advantage. Um, Contra is kind of like that as well, actually. Like you don't. I'm not gonna try to speak on Contra like I know everything about it. Having a faster mash helps in Contra, but I don't think it's necessarily required. So that's kind of actually why I'm interested in Contra, because there's a lot of mashing involved in that game as well, and that's kind of my thing now, and it's something I really enjoy. So that's kind of why I'm actually interested in Contra. But I like barely started learning about it; just started watching some runs and stuff. So um,
Okay.
yeah, it's really cool. So slash canceling is only one of the two major techniques in Ninja Gaiden that kind of make it an interesting run. There's also something called quick climbing. So in Ninja Gaiden, you can go up certain climbable ladders just by holding up. But it's kind of weird because your airspeed, if you hop off the ladder, your airspeed for like the first few frames is faster than your speed going up the ladder. So if you actually hop off the ladder for a split second and then re-grab it, you'll actually save time. And so that would be called like one quick climb. But if you do it consistently as you're going up a ladder, you're able to climb the ladder much faster than if you were just holding up. And so it's kind of an awkward technique because you're having to hold up on the D-pad, and simultaneously you have to hit left and then right. So you're basically rocking your thumb back and forth to hit left and right while holding up. So and you're holding A with the other finger. So it's a bit of an awkward technique that takes a lot of skill to get used to. But once you do, it's extremely satisfying. So basically, slash canceling and quick climbing are two just like very satisfying techniques that just make the run a lot more fun. And by the way, like one thing that has to be said about Gaiden is that when you're a top level runner, one challenge you're going to run into is building controllers or having a good controller. So I know in a lot of games like Super Mario 64, some of the top runners will like really have to start worrying about their stick and their bowl and all that. That is like a huge problem in Gaiden as well. Is basically like that quick climbing technique I mentioned. In order to be able to hold up and to toggle left and right very quickly, you need a very like special controller. Like you can't just use any controller. It becomes very difficult when you're trying to do it efficiently at a top level. And I will say I got into building my own controllers around 2021, like in the winter, like December, I guess. So I would say like genuinely the part of Ninja Gaiden that brings the most suffering is trying to build a controller that works for me because like the number of different things we need it to do well is just insane, and it becomes really hard to do it. And yet it requires a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error to figure out what controller works for you. And not everyone goes through this. Some people will kind of like settle for controllers that don't give like the top tier results.
Yeah.
But if you're like if you're a bit of a perfectionist like I am, you'll kind of like try really hard to like make a controller that's perfect for you. And I can't overstate it. Like it generally sucks trying to make a controller sometimes. It's not an easy thing to do. And it's a really weird. It's another really weird barrier to being a top runner. And like I said, some people manage to get through it without really having to worry about it too much. But it's pretty common for people to like really struggle with controllers not working after like a couple of months and having to
And
replace parts.
not
And
even to
it's
mention
pretty
that
insane how
if
much you have
you
to go
aren't
through
like repairing
as
or
a
anything,
top runner of the game.
older
But
game console controllers are getting up there in price as well, or being very hard to find.
right, for sure. And NES controllers nowadays, I think they're still relatively cheap, but maybe not easy to find. I don't know. I haven't looked online much. I think online they might be kind of harder to find. But for me, I just go to like game exchange places, and you can find controllers there. But here's the
Yeah.
thing, though: like just because you can find old controllers doesn't mean that you're gonna find something that's good for you. Let me just say, because like when I say that controllers for guiding require very specific conditions, I'm not joking. So like if you broke and open an N64 controller, you know how they work. The D-pad has like a rubber, and the rubber has pads that are engaged to contact the circuitry in the controller to give the send inputs to the game, right? So the rubber for the D-pad of the NES controller is really the most important part of the controller. And whether or not you have a good D-pad will determine, or a D-pad rubber and D-pad, by the way, will determine whether or not you can slash cancel well or you can quick climb well. And so here's the thing about old controllers. a lot of them were stored in like terrible conditions, and obviously they're extremely old. The NES is what, like 4 decades old at this point, or getting there, not quite, but close to it. And if you buy a random OEM controller from like a exchange video game exchange store, you can pull out the rubber, and it's the lottery at that point. The rubber might be well worn, it might be brand new. And here's the thing: if the rubber is in good condition, in my experience, that actually makes it bad for Ninja Gaiden. It actually needs to be loose. It actually needs to be worn in a bit.
Yeah.
If it's too stiff, you won't be able to slash cancel with it because you need to be able to press
I
down
think that's how
as
a lot
easily as
of
possible.
I
And
think
if you
that's how a
can't
lot
press
of
it
other
quickly, then you can't mash, and
console
so it becomes a
controllers are as
problem.
well. It's like
And just because it's
they're,
good for
especially
mashing,
when it comes to speedrunning, is that if they're brand new, it's hard to do certain tricks and all that because you need to use it in order to get it worn down a little bit in order to get the trick correctly or to get the right angle and stuff like that. So using a brand new controller can be very difficult.
right, for sure. And the thing about guiding though is like you can't just wear down a controller over time. Like you'll have to. It may be possible, but you'll have to wait way too long. You won't be able to do runs for like weeks, depending on what the rubber is. So you pretty much have to find it already in a worn condition, or it's just not going to work. But recently, my magic solution to finally being able to build controllers, actually, it's been my solution for almost a couple of years now. There are these black third-party rubbers that I've found that actually work extremely well for me, but they're not even 100%. Like some of them won't be good, some of them are good, and even with these rubbers, it's hard to make a good controller. But I cannot use OEM parts for my controllers. Like some parts maybe I could use OEM, but most of them I can't because they're just not, they don't fit my needs. And so some people look at this negatively, but I cannot use a normal Nintendo brand controller. I have to use like third party shells that I buy from retromodding.com, which has great stuff. D pads I use from them. The only OEM stuff I use is like the A and B rubbers, and then the PCB itself, the circuitry I use OEM. But most of my controller parts are third party. Um, and so it gets crazy, just to say the least, to try to build a controller. And honestly, because the needs of guiding controllers are so diverse, um, I've actually, at this point in my grind, am using two different controllers for my runs. I have a controller that I use for slash canceling, like for mashing at the end for the bosses, and then I have a controller that I use in the stages. Now I know in Super Mario 64, like that's a very common thing to use two controllers, but Ninja Gaiden, it's a very sort of new thing that no one's ever done regularly. So it's kind of a, I don't know. Some people see it as a taboo thing. I haven't. I think in the guiding community itself, basically nobody would care if you use two controllers. But obviously, there's people that are viewers that care, even though they've never run the game themselves and don't understand how difficult it is to make good controllers. And so I haven't had any negative comments about it, but one of my PBs from 2021, I did use two controllers for, but most of my runs are one controller. But nowadays, I have to use two, just because of how difficult it's been recently to build one good controller. And so, yeah, I use two controllers, and having to switch between them is kind of awkward at times, but I'm kind of in the process of getting used to doing that. So yeah, just so many challenges involved in this game that don't even involve actually playing the game. It's kind of insane because it took me 2 weeks to build a controller that works for me, and it's just like, oh,
Yeah,
I wish I
and
could just play the game without
um
having to worry about
that
this,
one
but it's
trick,
kind of
the
what I
what you were
signed up
saying,
for, so that's what I do
like
for
the
now.
ladder climb trick, the way you were describing it made me think of Wind Waker, the manual super swim.
Right,
Because when you said that he gets off the ladder, he goes faster, and then with Wind Waker, when
right. I've
you
heard about
swim
that.
backwards, you have a faster speed. So that's why they do in Wind Waker they do manual super swim, and you'll see him like pause buffering but going backwards, and that is just building up speed. So that when you were talking about that one trick, I was like, that's just like Wind Waker.
Yeah, it's pretty funny how in games there'll be like weird scenarios where you're going you're going faster in scenarios where you think you shouldn't be going faster. Like, why would it make sense that you can swim faster backwards? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And it's the same with Gaiden. Why would it make sense that when you hop off a ladder
Yeah.
for the first few frames, your airspeed is faster than the when you were climbing up the ladder? It makes no
And
sense. But it's a weird game mechanic that we have learned to take advantage of, and it's made the run a lot more interesting. I know
same thing
people who
with
wouldn't be running the game
other
still
games
without
as
it
well,
because
like
that's
Ocarina
how
of
much
Time.
fun it is when you once you get actually good
Backwalking
at it. So
is faster, or you can side hop, which I think is the same speed, but you have to time
right,
your jumps perfectly, which can be a little bit hard. But if you just angle yourself, turn around, and then backwalk, you'll get there faster in like no time. So yeah,
right. And so there's all kinds of weird stuff about that. What weird stuff like weird exploits, I guess, about speedrunning like that are just across all games. And it's really tech like that kind of makes me interested in certain speedruns. I didn't really realize this till recently, but I think people say this they throw this word around called technical speed runs, right? Like, oh, that's a technical speed run, and I never really knew what that meant, but recently I kind of realized that that's actually the sort of thing I think I'm interested in. And not all tech necessarily, but like there are certain techs that I'm interested in. Like Contra, there's a tech called spread rhythm, where you can shoot this spread weapon and you can only have 10 bullets on screen at once, and but it is you can control at what rate you fire those bullets if you time your mashing properly. And anyways, it's extremely cool to see people do it well and to kind of manipulate how the weapon works to suit their needs and to do more damage to enemies in certain parts of the run. So that's why like Contra, I'm gonna run it eventually. It might be next year until I get to it, but
yeah, I think it's
just
just
technical
crazy like
things like
how
that, and especially when it
technical
involves
this
mashing,
game
I
has to
think
be
are
in
super
order for you
interesting
to
for
speed
sure.
run it at, like, to even like look towards world record.
Oh, for sure. Like I mean, I remember like one thing that's been like really cool about my time as a guide and runner is that I've been able to watch the retro runner NAB world record and lower the world record significantly over the past almost 3 years now. When I first started speedrunning guide, Arcus still had the world record. Arcus being a very famous retro speedrunner who became well known from the Summoning Salt Ninja Gaiden video. That video was basically about him, mostly because he was the main Ninja Gaiden guy. But when I started running the game, the Retro Runner was right behind him, and it was in September of 2021 that he finally got the world record. And ever since then, he's lowered the world record by 5 seconds, which is insane
Yeah.
because a lot of people thought the original world record was unbeatable, but of course, that always ends up not being true. So it's been fun to watch him grind the world record since I started. And the reason I bring him up is because you talked about how technical things have to be, and I always watched him and thought, how the hell can he quick climb that well? Like the way he does it is just insane. And it's like, man, like I can't imagine how you could even do that. And eventually, I've gotten to a point where my skill level with quick climbing is not at his level, and it probably never will be, to be honest. But I'm not far behind, and my quick climbs at this point are good enough for world record if I were to grind for it, which I don't necessarily plan to. But and his mashing is not insanely fast, but it's insanely consistent. Like no one has gotten close to his mashing consistency in runs and in paces. So I just would like to take a moment really to, I guess, shout him out because it's been such a joy and it's been so fun to like watch him really take this game to another level ever since I started. Um, I think some people don't know what
Mm-hmm.
that feeling is like, but when you're running a game, you're not just a runner, you're also a viewer at times, right? And so being able to watch someone take the game that you enjoy to another level and to be able to see them world record and to grind, it not only is it inspiring, but it's so fun to watch. And you learn so much about how you should run the game by watching them. Like I've watched Arcus as well, and I've been like, oh wait, I'm not doing that as optimally as I could be. Like I want to do it like he's doing it because he's doing it really fast. And so Ninja Gaiden has a pretty healthy community, like seriously, and so having those two people, OG runners at this point, to kind of watch and to emulate has been extremely cool. It's a major part of guiding that
Yeah,
it shouldn't be it shouldn't go without saying. Being able to watch other runners and top runners do their thing is cool because not all games are that
yeah,
active.
and
Not all games are
a
that
little bit
active,
I
you
want
know,
you
and it kind
touched
of
on is like
I think makes it harder
watching
in
like
some cases to
you're
want to
even though
continue
you're a
running it.
speedrunner,
So
you're a viewer as well. And when it comes to practice, I think practice isn't always picking up the controller and playing. Yes, that does help, but practice is also viewing other runners to see like how they perform because they might do a trick better than you, and then you can learn from them to try to hopefully do that trick better, and then sooner or later you will. Uh, and uh, a lot of that is just like I said, watching speedrunners play the game. Like it is crazy. Going back to Majora's Mask, like it is crazy from what because I ran Majora's Mask any percent glitchless, and I didn't really know a lot about it, so I practiced by watching the YouTube videos on the route. I also watched Jess, who speedrun and has the world record in that category, and I've talked to him a little bit, and he's helped me a lot, and just like watching him run and the route he takes and so on and so forth, and it helps a lot. There's a lot of like things you can do. Like one of the things I used to do is that you would enter swamp, you back walk all the way to where the boat rental is. And what I used to do is I go straight to the owl, activate the owl, then head to the witch's thing. What I learned from watching Jess is that you can skip that owl entirely. You don't need to go to that owl statue at all. You could just go straight to the witch's hut and continue the run from there. So it saves a little bit of extra time and all that. So, but another thing is, I think you said something about uh world records and getting a better time and all that. And it's crazy. And I think from today, I think yesterday or the day before, Enop has gotten the 114 in Majora's Mask any percent. The first 114 just got beaten, or just got like just happened, and we didn't. In I think
mm.
the Majora's Mask community didn't think that
Oh
was
wow.
ever going to happen. I think it was always going to be the 115, but now it's the 114. So that's getting me thinking: is the 113 even possible? So I'm kind of excited to see that happen. But yeah, it's just crazy that you can think that
Yeah,
oh,
for
this
sure.
record's not going to be beat at all. Like the time's not. It might be close or it might go down a few 1 or 2 seconds or anything, but not like a full minute. Like, and it's just crazy to think about that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, like, some people, when they're running a game, they don't get to see that in their game. Like, if no one at the top is active, but the game has limits that still need to be pushed, like, you don't necessarily get to see that. But as someone who's a part of the community where that is happening, it has happened over the past 2 years. It's like it's really nice. It's really fun to be able to watch that, and it like really invigorates people and really gets people excited to continue running the game. Um, and I like to touch on practice a bit more because I think um, practice is so huge. I mean, it seems like such a like basic thing to say, but the truth
Yeah,
is like how far you go in a game is going to be directly correlated to how much you're willing to practice. I would say for me, um, like I've seen a lot of people run this game over the years, and some people don't practice as much, and they take a more casual approach to speedrunning, and I think that's totally legitimate. Like I think that's totally fine. And some people enjoy doing runs, even if it means they have to do a lot more to get results.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, my approach has always been to go extremely hard in practice and to not do runs until I feel like I'm ready. And that's allowed me to get results for my runs relatively quickly. Um, but I've also just had to spend a lot of time practicing. But for me, for me, doing practice, especially when I was not so fast, like maybe like a year ago, um, for me, doing practice was always more fun than doing
Mm-hmm.
runs. I hated doing runs because it was always annoying to have to reset and to make mistakes and everything. And so for the longest time, I strongly preferred practice to runs. And that's kind of, in my mind, has been sort of a lucky mindset to have because I've just gotten used to doing a lot of practice before I even start doing runs. And it's just helped me enjoy runs a lot more and helped me to get good relatively quickly um, because the practice really does pay off. I mean, what else can you say? And one thing they say in professional sports is that um, they'll talk about some player, right? Some new player, it might be a rookie or something. And they're like, "Oh, that guy's a student of the game," and that's supposed to be like a major compliment. Well, like genuinely, that is a thing in speedrunning too. Like, it's such a nerd thing to say, but you can be a student of the game. And I think what that meant for me is to like just watch people run the game. So like I would um like in my times where I was like the most addicted to Ninja Gaiden and the most addicted to speedrunning it, I would be like bored and I would just watch random runs on the leaderboards. Like just to see like what they were doing and like how good they were. And so I would always watch runs around my time and just to kind of see like what strats should I be doing, what am I aiming for next, like what should my next goal be with regards to certain tricks or certain boss fights and whatnot. And so all along the way, I've just been like a student of the game, I think, and trying to just watch people's runs and try to figure out what I should be doing. And it's been such an
Mm-hmm.
insane journey. And my goal this entire time is just to be someone who's good at the game, just to put it plainly. And I think um, I'm extremely happy with where I'm at now in terms of my skill, and especially recently, I felt more confident than ever. But I don't I don't hope to be done anytime soon with Gaiden, and I'm actually excited to push my limits even further. Because as good as I've gotten, there's still plenty of room for improvement. I mean, the world record is like 7 seconds away, so obviously there's some time saved there, right? And so um, I've started like streaming again recently and doing runs and stuff. And I've had so much fun with it. Um, like even though I'm at a high level, I haven't felt like I've been suffering too much, which can happen sometimes. And I know eventually things will
Yeah,
probably
and
get
that's
hard and
that's
annoying.
a
But for now, like I'm extremely motivated and I'm yeah just really excited honestly to be
yeah,
back
and
in speed running because
that's a good
I was
like
out of it for
mental
months because I
place
was
to
on like a
be
long
at. Is
break,
that
which happens to me
to
a
see it
lot. So
as a fun thing to do, not to, oh, I have to do this, you know. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that mindset, or and same thing as streaming is like, this is my job, I have to stream today.
right,
And no, you don't have to. It can be something fun, and I think to for a good role model to like look
right,
towards or look at is Richard Sage at the moment. He is currently done with Ocarina of Time and is moving on to other stuff. And does that mean he's going to stop speedrunning? No. He's also said that. But he is taking a break for his cuz he's done all he can do, you know, and there's only so much he can do. So he's going to focus on other stuff and all that, and that's probably like better for his mental health. Like, you can run yourself into the ground speedrunning a game nonstop. That's all you stream
right.
24/7. Like, you know, and it can take a big mental toll. And that, like I was saying, it's not just
Absolutely.
speedrunning,
Yeah.
it's streaming in general. And sometimes you could start it as, oh, this is fun, and then you get affiliate, and then the whole thing is,
Absolutely.
oh, people can donate, people can sub, people, throw bits at me, so on and so forth. So you're in the mindset of hoping people do that, and then you're like, oh, I can make this a job, but you're still pretty low as a streamer. Yeah, sometimes for random reason you'll blow up and you'll become a bigger streamer, and then people are donating and all that to you. But once you can get to there financially, that streaming can be a job, then do it. But still do it where you want to have fun and you're not looking at it from that point of view.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, luckily for me, it's never trying to become a streamer has not is not something that's ever like been interesting to me or been a temptation. And I say that as a good thing simply because it can be hard to live like that. Like uh I know streamers who were full time for a while and then had to stop being full time. And although that's not a bad thing, like having to stop, like they did it for a while and it was fun. But like
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to say is when you're a streamer that's small and trying to make it, it can be really stressful because it's not like a regular paycheck. It's dependent on how much you get from people. And so it can be stressful. And I would say for me, like in my personal life, like I'm kind of where I need to be in terms of like my job. So that's why I've always seen myself as not. I don't see myself as a streamer at all. I see myself as a speedrunner, and that's it. And so luckily, I haven't had to like really worry about metrics. I've never really fallen into that trap. I would say one, especially because I don't even stream like year round, like not even close. Like I didn't stream for months until recently. So um, I say for me, like being able
Yeah.
to focus on speedrunning has always been my thing. Like that's what I do. I just speed run and that's it. And some people watch me, because I'm good, and people like to watch good speedrunners, and it's been really fun to see people like enjoy watching me and be motivated by my grind. Um, but fortunately for me, like I have never really been like,
Yeah.
oh man, like I need to get more viewers or I need to do this or that. Like it's never gotten toxic for me, at least in that way. So it's been a pretty healthy grind overall. I would say for me, like I would say I've kept it very healthy. Now I do wish personally that I had what it takes to grind year round. To be
Mm-hmm.
honest, like I tend to reach a point where I'm just like, okay, I don't want to play this game every single night now. That's basically what I do when I grind. And so I kind of wish I was a bit more like of a long term grinder sometimes. But it is what it is. Like if I just don't enjoy it anymore for a while, then that's fine. It is what it is. I've managed to get pretty far being like this. Not being a full time grinder, and so I'm pretty satisfied with that. And actually, like now since I've started grinding again, I've been so motivated that I think maybe for the first time in a while, I think I might be grinding for like a few months here, maybe the rest of the year, just to see how far I can get.
Yeah.
But it also depends on how like motivated you are and how confident you feel. And I just right now I feel both of those things. So I could see myself finishing off my time with Gaiden with one last grind of
Mm-hmm.
maybe a few months. I have no idea. I've never been able to predict like when I'm gonna stop or when you know what I mean. I've never put limits on myself. That's one thing I'll say about my grind is that I've never tried to act like, oh, I'm definitely going to be done when I reach this time. You know what I mean? Um, I think some people in our community have done that where it's kind of funny. It's not a bad thing, but some people in our community have said, okay, I'm going to stop at sub 12 in any percent.
Yeah.
And then they keep going further than that. And they say, okay, I'm going to stop at 4x in any percent. And then they keep going after that. It's a pretty funny thing that a lot of people have done because they get addicted to it. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually just kind of funny that that happens. But in my grind, there was never a time where I said,
Yeah.
okay,
Exactly.
this is where I'm going to stop. I've always said, you know what? I'm going to get to this time and then we'll just see where it goes from there. And sure enough, I still haven't reached a point where I'm done yet, even to this day. So, um, I've always just kind of taken the approach where like, okay, I'm going to learn some hard strats, you know, and just in case I want to do them later, I'll have them in my back pocket. And along the way, I've eventually implemented all those strats that I kind of learned just to prepare. And so, yeah, I don't
Oh
know.
no, 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 no.
I think I've had a pretty healthy mindset overall. Let me just say that doesn't mean I haven't been pissed off. You know, I mean, if you watch my streams, like I am like top 5 biggest babies in Ninja Gaiden. Okay, like if you watch my stream, I do get pissed off. I do get annoyed. I curse a lot, and so let me just say, like, I'm not the speedrunner that's like super mellow, you know, and super chill and doesn't get angry. Like I'm not an Arcus type. That's what
No,
he is. He's
I get
100%. That's what he is. But I am not
I
like
get the
that at
same
all.
way
So
when
don't
I
get me
was
wrong. I
speedrunning as
don't.
well. It's like
I'm not like
it's
that.
just
I
the
do get upset.
smallest like movement
I do
failure,
curse,
or if
but
you don't get a trick right away, and then you're like, now I'm upset. Like I should have got it. I know how to do it, but it didn't work. So it's like now I'm upset.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I don't have like a super healthy like oh it's okay kind of mindset. You know what I mean? I have a more of a perfectionist kind of mindset where I'm like I want everything to be as good as possible, and if it's not, I'm gonna get annoyed for sure. And so it's not. I don't know if it's really like a negative thing, you know, to be that way. It's extremely common, right? And a lot of people who are like that end up taking the game far anyways, and it's fine. But that's definitely kind of
Yeah.
my speed running personality is the guy who like definitely rage sometimes when it's not going well. But in the ends, the thing that
Hmm.
helps me is just having amnesia about it all. Like when I have a bad stream, I just act like it didn't happen, pretty much. Like I just have amnesia about it. I forget it and I move on. And so I think um, having that amnesia is like really helpful, and just like deciding that it doesn't matter. Like you're going to keep going, and that has its limits. That definitely has its
Yeah.
limits, right? Like eventually, I could get tired and just be like, you know what, like forget this. Like I'm done forever. But fortunately, I have not reached that point. So
Yeah, and
I think I
a
have
little
some
bit
room to
of what
grow
you were
as a
talking
runner,
about
and
earlier
I'm
is,
definitely
or
super
what we were
excited
both
about that.
technically talking about, is when it comes to streaming, I view it as, um, I don't view it as a job. I view it as like a hobby, as something fun to do. Currently, I haven't been streaming as much because I'm still looking for a job, and I want to get a job to be financially stable
Right.
to help my family. Then I will come back to speedrunning or to streaming, maybe speedrunning in the future. But like, um, I I don't know what about this, but I always liked, especially growing up when I was playing games, I always liked it when people would watch me. And that's how I view streaming. Is I can play a game I like and I can show viewers or these other people a
Mm,
game that I like to play and just walk them through it. If they have questions, I can answer the questions and so on and so forth. But I can show off this game, and that's my whole perspective on it. Is I just like having people watch me play a game, and I don't know why. I don't know why I have that mindset or anything, but I've always had it since I was pretty young and first able to play a game. So, mm-hmm.
well, it's kind of funny because you were born at the right time where, as you grew up, there was a way for you to do that. You know what I mean? Like if you were born in like, you know, a
Yeah.
little earlier, you know, it'd be a bit late and maybe you wouldn't have, you know, found Twitch. You know what I mean? So that's kind of cool that you're able to find it. But I see it
Mm-hmm.
I see it from a slightly different perspective where I don't necessarily enjoy people watching me, but I do enjoy teaching. Um, in my line of work, I get to train people and I get to do some teaching here and there, and it's extremely
And
satisfying to kind of pass on knowledge and to help people understand things. It's a lot of fun. And so, especially being a top runner, you get moments like that where people want to ask you questions. or they want to learn something, and it's very satisfying to be able to like help people like that. And so it's a big positive of being a top runner is people
Yeah.
seek out your help, and it's like it's extremely fun, and so it
I'm
just
in the
adds to the
same
enjoyment
boat
of it
as
all. So it's
well
like
with all that,
another layer of
but
enjoyment
not
and
towards
makes it
speedrunning.
just super fun
So
to do. So
I have this group that I normally hang out with, and we started doing, and like this isn't speedrunning at all, but I'm just throwing it in there. But it's all about randomizers or randos for Ocarina of Time, and I I understand from your point of view of it's satisfying to pass on your what you've learned to other people, because with randomizers there's a lot to learn. You have, I don't know if you've ever played a randomizer or seen randomizers or anything, but there is a lot to learn and a lot of like little tricks and stuff like that, and being able to pass that on to someone else. Like literally yesterday I was, or the day before, a friend was practice streaming Ocarina of Time Rando, and this little thing that I just said helped her a lot with like a boss um or anything, and it's just the little pieces of advice and stuff like that, and it's just so satisfying to it's just satisfying. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I can imagine that being the case more so with randomizers because they're insane. I mean,
Hmm.
especially the Zelda ones. I mean, those games are so full of items and whatnot, and so the fact that and
Yeah.
chess too. Like I think that's a big part of it is the chess. I imagine too. The fact that they're all randomized now just makes it even more insane. And so I can imagine there's a lot of like in intricacies to randomizers, especially Zelda ones. And so I can definitely see what you're saying, even though I don't have
Yeah, and
experience
like
with randomizers.
I
But yeah,
grew
that
up playing
sounds like a
Zelda
lot of fun
games.
to be able to
Like
teach people
not
that
much
because it's very
Mario.
complicated.
Like I did have some Mario games, but my whole childhood was Zelda growing up. So I had years of experience playing these games and learning the games on my own,
Yeah,
and then now I can take that knowledge and pass it to someone else who hasn't played as much as me or anything. So it's just an awesome feeling. So
right.
um so this is probably about the point where I will ask you if you have any questions for me.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I don't think so. I appreciate you having me on though, and it was a good conversation.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm glad you invited me on just because my game's a little bit different than yours. You know what I mean? And so I appreciate you looking out. I appreciate you looking for diversity in your guests because I think that'll help you the podcast be more interesting and maybe
Yeah.
reach a wider audience. So I appreciate you having me on, having me on, even though my game's not even 3D. You know what I mean? It's in 2D, so it's a little bit different. But I appreciate you listening to my story and my journey and going through me explaining techniques and just because I know it's gonna be kind of weird. It's like, well, I don't really know what this guy is saying, but I'll go along
Yeah.
with it,
But
So I
that's
understand
the other
it can be
thing
kind of weird at
as well, is
times
that it
to
is
hear
interesting
explanations like
as
that
well.
without any
Even
sort of
though I
visual.
don't know
But
the game
yeah,
at
I
all.
appreciate
Like I've never even
you listening
heard
to
of
me.
it until I met you. But listening to it, it sounds very
Yeah,
interesting, and it seems like a very interesting speed run as well.
right.
So before we end or like
Yeah,
starting to
for
wrap up,
sure. Appreciate
I am
that.
gonna
I
ask one
agree,
question.
obviously.
So you kind of like talked about it a little bit, but what is your future goals in your speedrunning?
Oh yeah, thanks for asking. So Yeah, so it's hard to say because I can't predict when for sure I'll be done. But let me just say, first of all, I'm not completely done with any category in Gaiden, actually. The damages world record is very much not beatable anytime soon, I think, by anyone. But I had a lot of paces when I was in my damages grind that were faster. A lot of pace, literally most paces I had were faster than the run that I ended up finishing. So I'm interested in lowering the world record, even though that category is kind of painful, if I'm being honest. But I would like to lower that time. I want to be like at least top 10 or top 5 in every single category, which means I have to revisit low percent and pacifist since my times in them are not. My pacifist time is literally last place because I just did it casually without learning, and not that category is like if you don't learn the strats, it's a pain. Like my time is like an hour and something. It's insane. But I want to actually learn the category. And then low percent, I want to get top 10 or top 5. I just want to be good at all of it, pretty much. So, like, top 5 in every category is very doable, but whether or not I take it that far, I don't know. 100%, I have second place right now. I'd like to get world record in that. Any percent, though, is my main grind, obviously. Right now, I have 1139.6, which was third place, but recently it became fourth place. When I started grinding Gaiden, the world record was 1138, low 1138. So I think at the very least, I'd like to beat what the world record was when I started, and I believe that's extremely doable for me. I could literally do it in a couple of days. You know, when I could do it my next stream like that. It's going to be pretty soon, I think. And so to summarize all that, I think top 5 in every Ninja Gaiden category is basically my long term goal. Um, I could have it done by the end of the year. Realistically, it just kind of depends on how long I want to run 80%, I guess. Because my 80% time, it could go even lower than 1137. So we'll see. I don't want to predict too much. You know, I just think I'll just say that I'm gonna grind every category at least a little bit more. So and then I'm gonna learn Contra. Like that's 100%. Like I'm extremely interested in it. I'm excited to do that. I after running Gaiden for so long, it's gonna be weird starting a new game, and it's gonna be interesting to see how I decide to approach it and how try hard I go from the beginning. But as much as I'm enjoying Gaiden now, I can't wait to start a new game and just to see what that experience will be like, even though it might not be until next year, like early next year. But yeah, those are my
Well, I
goals.
wish you
Definitely
the best of
hope to
luck
be speedrunning
with
for the foreseeable
the
future.
speedrunning
So
journey.
I'm really excited.
Um, but yeah, I appreciate you coming on. It has been amazing. It's such a good opportunity to learn about a new game I had never heard before or really like seen either. Like I popped into your stream a few times and just like the gameplay and the way you move the character is just nuts. Like I would not be able to do that at all. No. All
Yeah,
right,
for
so
sure.
if you guys
it's
want to go
definitely
follow
different, especially when you
Moose,
aren't used to
his
like
link will be in
NES
the
or 2D
description
speedruns.
below.
Yeah, for sure.
Go give him some good luck whenever he goes live. And yeah, anything else you want to say or advice for people coming into the speedrunning community?
Yeah, just have fun with it. I mean, I could go on and on with advice to be honest, but I think I'll keep it succinct and say just have fun with it. Don't feel pressure uh, to take it more seriously than you want to. That's really all it takes to have fun, and try to develop a healthy mindset around it too, so that you continue to have fun. Don't be too hard on yourself. Recognize that it takes a lot of time to get good, and don't feel bad watching top runners because you have to realize that they are top runners because they played the game for a very long time. So um, have fun with it. Don't be too hard on yourself. And if you made it this far into the podcast, I appreciate you doing that because I can understand why maybe you would have cut off by now. But if you made it this far, thank you. And yeah, PensiveMoose, that's me. You'll see
Yeah,
the link in the
it
description, I
has
guess. Give
been
me a
a
follow if
blast
you
having you
want,
on.
or don't.
So
That's chill.
All right,
But
and we
yeah,
will
thanks
see
for
you
having me
guys
on,
later.
Dr. Major. I
Peace.
appreciate it.